Hi, I'm Beck. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about what I learned from writing and self-publishing my first book. So the book is When Lambs Grow Fangs. She's a hefty girl. Not that hefty. It's a book. I wrote a full book and I'm very proud of that. But here are some things that I learned that I'm hopefully not going to stuff up next time, or just things that I need to keep in mind. So, future Beck, this is a video for you. When I started writing When Lambs Grow Fangs, it wasn't called that. It was going to be called Anastasia Rising, because the lead character's name is Anna, and she becomes a vampire, so she rises from the dead. Eventually I decided that was a bit on the nose, but in the process of writing it, it was one of those things where writing a book has always been like a bucket list, unachievable goal. I think I had in mind that you need to have some sort of special qualifications to be a writer, like a proper writer. And so I kind of discounted that I could just sit down and write, basically. But, so the first piece of advice is you don't need special qualifications. If you know how to write in any form, then you can be a writer. The second thing is that the first draft should just be for you. So I know there are a lot of proper professional writers who, their main advice will be, think of the title first, the hook first. A lot of them say they even write the blurb first, so that it's the gist of the story is already ready. And they say consider the tropes that are selling, and consider your keywords that you're going to use when you're marketing this book. It's good advice, but for the first draft, in order to get a full book written, just write. Just write for yourself. So write the book that you want to read. That is the quote that inspired me to actually sit down and just write this story. There'd been sort of scenes of it floating around in my head for years, and I think I maybe in my early 20s might have even sat down and tried to write some of it. I have no files left from that, but that story would have been very different to this story. And while there are planners and pantsers, which I hate that phrase, but that's what they're called in the writing universe, I'm definitely a pantser. I find it a lot more interesting to just sit down with my characters very clearly defined and throw problems at them, and whatever they, in my mind, I know who they are, so I know what they would do in any situation. And so when you throw a problem at them, you're like, okay, well, who's there? This person, this person, this person. Here is how they would interact, and here is what they would do. And the story just kind of happens as a result of that, rather than a planner where you're like, okay, well, this character needs to have gotten to this place by this part of the story because the climax is happening here, and I need them to have gotten here by this stage. So they have a very rigid structure of where their characters need to go. And if you're a very talented writer and your brain works in a way that is great, then it can feel natural. But most of the time you will get that sense of you're reading the book and you're like, wow, they really just cut from they're doing A and now they're at B because they had to be, not they were at A and because this happened now they have gone to B, and because this happened now they've gone to C. First draft, write for you, but in the editing process, that is when you bring in the okay, well, who is my audience? What do they like to read? Are there any kind of tropes that I can not shoehorn in, but emphasize? Because usually in a story, you'll already have scenes that have the popular tropes in them, especially if you're someone who reads books of the genre that you are writing. So you'll take the concepts of like enemies to lovers or something like that. So just one bed. If you like that kind of trope, you'll probably have already put it in your book, so you can just make a note of it while you're editing. Like, this is when I'm marketing, make a note, friends to lovers, or whatever. LGBTQ representation. If that's something that you care about and you like reading about, you won't have had to sit down and make a note to say, make sure you add a character. They'll just be in there. It'll just be part of the story anyway. So, I think it's important that, like, you consider who your audience is, but if you were not among them, then that's a weird way to write a book. I know there are writers who do, like, I'll do a book a month or 2 books a month just to get, like, fill up a Amazon page full of books, and they're quick and dirty and they're not great, but they're, like, usually just smart. So they don't have much storyline. They're basically like a flimsy premise to have a sexy scene or something like that. But if it's a book you care about, don't worry about anyone else reading it until you're on like the 3rd or 4th draft, because things will change. Speaking of, the next piece of advice would be, it's not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. This is like being on a cruise going from one country to another country. And whatever you think, like however long you think each step of the book writing process will take, it's going to take at least a month longer. So like I kept getting very excited. Like when I finished the first draft, I was so excited and I wanted to like publish it and have everyone read it and be like, this is my book and I wrote it. I wrote a whole book. Yay. Fortunately, I had the presence of mind to just print 1 copy and give it to my best friend to read. And then while she was reading it, I was also going over it and finding scenes where I'm like, I did this intentionally so that it would be against like what you would expect to happen. But now that I'm reading it, it just feels like I missed an opportunity to make the story interesting. There is the sort of like the number of drafts you do and the number of times you go through edits and like how many people you show each version to before you're like, enough, it's done, we have arrived at our destination. It's an individual thing, but this book, it's as good as it can be. I wouldn't say that it is 100% perfect. It's been checked so many times, but I'm sure there is probably a typo in there somewhere that I will find and be very upset about. As far as I know, the story is solid, the plot is solid. There are no like, why didn't they do that? That doesn't make sense. Or I don't understand the magic system. It makes no, like, I didn't get any questions back from the people who read my book about the story itself. They were always like, oh, this, I think you accidentally deleted part of the sentence here because it just stops. Or like, they're all grammar and like typing issues, which is the preferred thing to fix because it's a lot easier than, oh, your plot has a huge hole here, so you need to write like 6 more chapters to fix it. Or just the whole thing doesn't make sense, so scrap it and start again. Also learned very quickly, like I think I started writing in Word, which is not my favorite program anyway, but Google Sheets and Google Pages are your friend. Like the Google online, the Google version of Word, I should know because I use it all the time, but also Google Spreadsheets. So Google Word will automatically save your work as you go, so you don't have to worry about like, is this the most recent version? And like, I work sometimes on my iMac and sometimes on my laptop. So, and sometimes I want to check something I've written and I can just go on my phone and have a quick look. So it's handy to have it online. And I also download versions where I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this version. I'll download it. And then I can edit like a PDF version of it rather than editing within the document. And then like, I want to go back and change it to what it originally was. Spreadsheets, I keep track of all my characters, all my locations. I have like a lunar chart of like what the moon phase would be based on the timing that I've described. Not that anyone would really care and be tracking that, but like if I say that it was a full moon on Christmas Day or night, because moon, then New Year's, which is only a week later, cannot also have a full moon. That kind of thing. Especially when you have a book with werewolves, it's important to track when your full moons are. But I have like a list of potential magical creatures that could appear. I've done a lot of research into like more obscure magical creatures, but I decided to hold them off until book 2 when we're actually going into the fairy realm. I'm tracking the spells that have been mentioned, or even if they're not mentioned by name, just like if this character does this piece of magic, just make a note that like that piece of magic exists in the world. So if one person can do it, probably other people can do it too. And like bear in mind that if there's a problem where that spell could solve it, you need to explain why that person, like maybe the people who can do that magic aren't present at the time. Something as simple as that, but just like thinking about it and having spreadsheets is just easier for me to track all that information, especially because you can do Control F and like look at a keyword and find the keyword to be like, oh yes, this is Jeremy's last name. I forgot Jeremy's last name because he's like a nothing character. There is no Jeremy in my book yet. Well, the first one obviously no, but the second one maybe. Maybe there'll be a Jeremy. We'll see. I've already kind of touched on this, but definitely get other people to read all the versions of your books. So whenever you go through a round of like major edits, if you have someone who's willing to read your book, and remember that like they're doing you a favor. So unless you're paying an editor to edit your book, make sure that the person you're giving the book to is actually happy to read it and has time to read it, and B, give them like a reasonable time frame. So whether you say like, when do you think you can have the book read and come back to me with edits, or whether you say like, I really want to get my changes done and have this book released by Christmas, and it's March right now. Is that enough time for you? Like, do you think you could come back to me with any feedback by like June? Like, if it's a full book, not everyone has time to sit down and read a whole book in like a weekend. Panda. Oh no. Okay. Not everyone has time to read an entire book in a weekend. There are a lot of people on like BookTok and BookTube and things where they're like, oh, I read 600 books this year. That to me is like, I don't know where you get the time to do that. I don't have time to read that many books, and I love reading. So my friends and family, they have full-time jobs. They have their own interests. They're probably, if they like reading, they're probably already reading their own like published books. So making time to read an amateur's book, be grateful that anyone is willing, and if no one is willing, you can always hire an editor. But I understand, because this is where I was at, I don't have a realistic expectation that my book is going to make significant sales. And if I don't think that I'll be getting my money back from like paying an editor, then I don't really want to pay an editor to do that job. So if it was the kind of thing where like now that it's available for sale, if this was going to be like, basically, I'm going to really be pushing this book and going to try and get as many sales as I can, and I'm going to go to markets where I'm selling a physical version, and I'm really going to try and sell as many books as I can, and I've done like a budget analysis or something where I'm like, I need to sell this many books by this time in order to make the money back that I spent on publishing the book. Sure, you can hire an editor, but I'm doing this as a hobby. It's not a job, so I don't want to spend money on it when I don't have to. That said, I am glad that I got this piece of advice before I put my book for sale on Amazon, and that is buy your own ISBN. So the ISBN is the number that appears under the barcode. The barcodes will get automatically generated by Kindle Direct Publishing, assuming that's who you're using to print your book. And Kindle can or will offer to give you a free ISBN. But the downside of that is if you want to sell your book through any other publisher in the future, you have to then get a second IBN, and it'll basically be treated as a whole new separate book. So if you are making a lot of sales on Amazon and you have all these great reviews for your book on Amazon, none of them will apply to the edition that you print through somebody else, because it will be a different ISBN, and the ISBN is how all companies know which book is which. So even if it is the same content inside, even if it's the same cover and everything, just the fact that it's being printed by someone else will treat it like it's a whole second book. And I just wanted to have the freedom to say, like, if I want to print this book through somebody else, it will have the same ISBN because I own that ISBN, and all the information associated with this book is attached to the ISBN. So that is something that I was willing to spend my money on. Different countries have different prices for ISBNs. Australia is pretty good cost-wise, but there are different, like, I got the impression there's, like, per country there's one place where you can buy official ISBNs. So it's not hard to find through Google which one is your official one. So, like, look into that. It might be well worth your money to have that. It doesn't mean if you use the free ISBN through Kindle, it doesn't mean that they own your book. It just means that, like, if you want to publish your book somewhere else, it'll be treated as two different things. You get it. I wasn't originally going to use ARCs or advanced copy. I wasn't going to send out advanced reader copies, which is the ARCs, because I was like, I just want to post it, get it published, and then, like, people can read it and review it as needed. But I had a thing where, like, when I uploaded the book and decided to send myself a, like, pre-publishing proof copy, the wait time was months. So I was like, well, since it's going to be months until I get my proof to read the proof before I actually publish the book, I might as well send it out in digital form to whoever wants to read an advanced copy and see if I can get feedback from them. So I went onto a few, like, Reddit pages and Facebook pages where the advanced reader copy reviewer people congregate, and posted a sort of ad to be like, if anyone's interested in reading this book, please sign up on the form on my website. And I got about 12 people sign up, which I thought was very good. Of the 12, only one of them actually, I don't know if they all read the book or they just got a copy and haven't read it even yet now, but only one actually, like, replied to me with feedback, and it was good. It was a good review and good feedback. But I don't know that the effort of creating an ARC reader form and then contacting all these strangers, because I'm very introverted and I'm shy. I'm a little shy house cat. So talking with strangers was very, like, scary for me, and I don't know if I'm going to bother doing that for book 2. Like, I've kept the information of the original ARC readers, and there's still a form on my website where people can sign up to read advanced copies of the book, if they're, like, reviewers and stuff. And there's a box that you can tick to say, like, send me future copies, but I think in future I'll be like, hey, do you still want to receive an advanced reader copy of the book? And if they don't reply to that email, I'll not bother. I don't know that it's really worth the effort. I don't, like, in terms of getting reviews, I don't really know how it works with advanced reader copies, because before the book is published, you can't post a review on Amazon anyway, or on Goodreads, because Goodreads is owned by Amazon. So there's really nowhere that the reviews can go, and I don't really know how that works. So let me know in the comments if you know how ARC reviews are supposed to work, because I think the idea is that, like, when your book is available for, like, pre-order, there are already reviews of people saying like, oh yeah, this is what it's about and this is good, and like they're a legitimate person. I don't know if you're supposed to try and push them to be like, oh, do you have a lot of followers on your social media accounts? Can you post about my book on there to get stuff going? But like usually I think that's a paid service. Like you'll have someone with a lot of followers who'll say, I will post about your book for X money. I'll read your book and post about your book for X money. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it unless you are in the mindset of like, I want to make as many sales as I can, which again, I am not that person. So I want people to read the book and enjoy the book, but I have a job that makes good money, so I'm not planning on quitting or anything like that. I like the life I have, so I'm not looking to make any big changes in that area. Would I like it if my book blew up and I was the next Sarah J. Maas? Of course I would, but that's just like, I've only written one book, so calm down. At the moment, I'm enjoying the writing. I like writing books, so we'll see. Hello, I'm just cutting in because I forgot to mention something. It is very important that you upload your book to Kindle Direct Publishing and then order an author's proof, because I will show you. The author's proof comes with a not for resale sticker, but just in doing that alone, I could see that the bat, for example, on my screen it stood out really well, but in print it gets lost. It looks kind of accidentally there, and the city at the bottom, they didn't contrast as much as I wanted, so I was able to make changes for the final version of the book, and you can see the difference. Beautiful. And then obviously the back, same changes. Just having a physical copy for that reason alone is worth it, but also in terms of marking it, there's something about reading a final version of anything. As a graphic designer, I can attest to this. You can look at as many draft copies as you want, but as soon as you print a copy and you're like, this is the version that is final, that's when everyone finds errors, including you. So most of these aren't errors. Most of these are just, while I was reading the book, they stood out to me as weird, or I wanted to change the way things were phrased, or it felt like a chapter needed to end at a certain point, or there are so many changes where I thought this version was the final version, but it wasn't. So there have been a lot of changes since the quote-unquote final version and the actual final version of the book. So could not recommend enough. Get an author's proof delivered to you before you actually go live with any version of your book. Here's the most important piece of advice I can give you, especially if you are formatting the book for publishing yourself and you're going to be doing a Kindle version or an ebook version and a printed version. Do the Kindle version first, because I'm a graphic designer and I was very excited about designing my own cover and having a physical version of a book that I'd written, so I prioritized formatting everything for the print version of the book, which is fine, but then the process of making a Kindle ebook involves basically like everything you would do for the print book, but you also need to assign values to like the chapter headings and separate all the sections to make sure that when people are reading it on a Kindle and they change the font size or they change whatever, it doesn't ruin everything. So essentially, I had to format the whole book twice, rather than if I'd done the ebook and had all the information attached as I went, and then just saved that for the print book, because for making it for the print book is just like changing the margin size to allow for the middle of the book, because obviously you have this part that disappears in the middle, it needs a larger margin on the inside than the other sides. You can easily just change that in InDesign and everything will shift to fit properly. And so it would have saved me, like I would have been able to format both formats in half the time, but I basically had to do everything twice, so that was a bit annoying. Anyway, so that is a very important piece of advice. I feel like there are already a few videos of how to format for either. Like I used a YouTube video to figure out how to do the ebook, which I found a lot more complicated than doing the print book. But again, I'm a graphic designer, so I deal with print designing a lot. I don't do a lot of digital design, so other than like a social media tile, which is again just a static thing, I don't usually use the parts of InDesign where you assign values to things and they're like interactive. So if anyone is interested in me like recording when I do the next book formatting situation, let me know. I'll try and do like a tutorial, but I feel like there's probably people out there who are much more articulate than I am and experts and know what they're doing. But because they're experts, I did find a lot of the videos were a little bit like they don't know what it's like to not know what you're talking about. So they sounded more complicated than they needed to be. And they skipped over steps that I guess were like automatically set up for them. But I had to set them up manually because I don't usually do this kind of thing. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you want me to make a tutorial video and I'll see what I can do. Similar to what I just said, one of the things when I was uploading my book for publishing, again, I uploaded the paperback version first and set up the date for it to be released and everything, and then I uploaded the Kindle digital file. And in both versions they do a check of the file that you've sent and you can see a preview of how it's going to look on the screen. The main difference between the paperback and the Kindle is that the checks that they do for the Kindle include spelling errors and things, and so that one, which I did second, came up with like 3 spelling errors that I had missed. And I'd already like not published the book because it was like you set it to publish on a certain date. But when you set something to publish on Kindle Direct Publishing, it's like locked for 72 hours while they review it. I don't know how they review it. I don't know if there's an actual physical person who looks over it to make sure it is in fact what you say it is, or if there's like some sort of AI robot that again makes sure that it's not a copy of somebody else's book. I assume maybe both. But basically you can't edit it until after that time has passed. And I spent that time freaking out because I could easily change the spelling errors in the Kindle version and re-upload that because I hadn't already hit save to publish. But for the paperback one, I was like, especially being my first book, I didn't know what the process was. So I was like, well, now that I've said publish and it's being reviewed, once it's accepted, does that mean I can't change it? And fortunately, because I set it as like, I'm uploading it and want to get it reviewed and approved and all that today, and then it's not actually going to be released for a couple of weeks. I had a few weeks, like when they accepted it, it came with a message saying, because it's going to be published on this date, you have until this other date to make any last minute changes. And I was like, that's good, thank you, because I do need to make a last minute change because I need to apply the fixes to those 3 spelling errors to this other book. So both of the books are the same book, essentially. So upload your ebook version first. It will find any errors that you've missed. And yeah, just basically do, like, I mean, Kindle Direct Publishing, it should tip you off that, like, it is set up to be the most useful if you're doing a digital book. And then once the digital book is all squared away and perfect, it's very easy to do slight adjustments and then attach a cover, and then you have a paperback book. So yeah. And another thing, the final thing, is when you set the date that you're publishing your book to come out on, bear in mind that the time that it comes out will be UTC, which is Universal Time Code or something. Essentially, it is the same time as London. So whatever time it is at midnight in London, that's when the book will come out. So when I set my book to come out on Saturday the 15th of March, it didn't come out in Brisbane until 10 a.m. on that day. In some countries, that means that it will come out like 11 p.m. the day before. Time math, it gets confusing, but basically you can't set the time or the what time it will be in each location of when the book comes out. You can't do like a universal, it will come out at 7 a.m. on a Saturday everywhere. It's more when a video game comes out, and it's it comes out at midnight all over the world, same time, whatever time that is for you. You need to figure out when it's actually coming out. And it's a pet peeve of mine in Australia because we're plus 10 UTC, which means when you get something that's particularly a video game that's coming out on a Saturday night, pardon me, on a Saturday night, it means we can't play it until Sunday because it doesn't come out for us until Sunday. And so you see all these ads and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be able to play it on Saturday, yeah. No, you can't play it until Sunday because that's how time works. Anyway, those are my main pieces of advice with relation to writing, and particularly the self-publishing process of my book. If you have advice that I feel like I've missed a lot of information, but this is the stuff that was my takeaway, and I know that a lot of authors have a lot of advice, and I'm hoping that the ones I've given are different and are a little bit helpful if you've already watched all the videos of professional writers who give all the same advice every time. Mine's a little bit more specific in areas and also quite generic in other areas, but yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, and give it a like if you did like it and all that stuff. Whatever. Anyway, have a good day. Bye.